call the June 11th, 2015 meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission to order. And if we can proceed to the roll call, please, Candace.
Judy Arnold is absent. Empty seat. Jeff Blanchfield.
Here.
Carla Condon. Here. Damon Conley.
Here.
Craig K. Murray is absent. Empty seat. Gary Phillips.
Here.
Jack Baker.
Here.
Alternate seated in the audience, Christopher Burdick. Here. Roll has been taken.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a quorum, thus we can conduct our business this evening. I am going to assume that the commission approves of the agenda unless I hear a motion to change the agenda. Okay, motion to approve by Commissioner Condon and a second by Commissioner Baker. Those in favor of approving the agenda item, please, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner oppose? Any commissioner abstain? We will proceed with the agenda as written. Next item is the open time, the time on our calendar where we set aside opportunities for members of the public to address the commission on matters that we don't have calendared for discussion tonight. And I have no indication that anybody in the audience wishes to speak. And I see at least one head nodding in the affirmative and another as well. So that's unanimous. Therefore, we'll move to the consent calendar, of which we have 6 items on here tonight, including the financial report and projections for FY 2014-2015, the approval of our minutes of our last regularly scheduled meeting on April 9th and our special scheduled meeting of May 14th, the approval also of the calendar for the second half of fiscal year 2015, and the progress report on our work plan, and a proposal for selecting candidates for the Special Districts Risk Management Authority, up to 3 out of the 4 that I believe have indicated they are in the running to serve on the board of the Risk Management Authority. And of course, the current and pending proposals that are just for our information only. They're not for discussion this evening. So I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar unless there is some matter a commissioner would like to discuss, and then we'll pull that off and have discussions on it and fold it back in and vote on all six matters on the consent calendar. Yes, Commissioner Baker.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the calendar. My knowledge of other entities is at the beginning of the year, they approve a calendar for the full year.
Got to push that and speak into it.
Yeah, regarding the calendar,
this is number 3, or just
I apologize. Okay.
There you go.
Need more experience. On the calendar, but my knowledge of other entities is at the beginning of the year, they approve a calendar for the full year, not half a year, and then revisit it in June for the other half. I would just encourage my colleagues on the commission maybe to consider, unless there's some compelling reason that can explain to us, and there may be, why don't we just do one calendar for the full year?
Well, through the chair, the idea of doing it every 6 months, again, it's completely discretionary. It just provides staff and the commission a little more flexibility, given you have 2 essentially full-time employees. The workload sometimes ebbs and flows. But if that's something the commission would like to do, we can certainly adjust and plan accordingly.
Okay, I thought we had scheduled meetings once every 2 months in the past, and we had our special scheduled meeting this past month just because there was an awful lot on our calendar.
You know, the workload varies. You know, for example, this is our 6th meeting in 5 months. And, you know, I think it'd be reasonable to assume the next 6 months will probably only meet 3 times. So there is no set reason why we're doing it every 6 months, other than perhaps, again, my own pathologies here, that it gives us a little more flexibility.
So because of our work schedule, which has been changing considerably since the new studies that we've undertaken, this has given more flexibility to schedule these in advance instead of having to have a series of special meetings.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe we can see how this works through the end of the year and take this up at the strategic planning retreat in January to see how this has worked out and whether any modifications should be made to that. If I might ask Commissioner Baker if that's okay with him.
That's fine.
Okay, but that's a good point. Okay, any
For
other
approval of the consent calendar.
motion and a second? Motion by Commissioner Conley and second by Commissioner Phelps to approve the consent calendar. All those commissioners in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner abstain? Any commissioner opposed? Oh, there is a commissioner abstaining. Me. I wasn't here at the I'm abstaining as it deals with the minutes for May 14th. I was not present then. On all other matters, I'm agreeing with the motion. Okay, I'm going to move to our public hearing items. The first is the adoption of the final work plan and budget for fiscal year 2015-2016. This is, what, the second time we've looked at this?
Correct. So, as the chair referenced, this public hearing is really for the commission to consider taking the final step in game planning for the upcoming 15-16 fiscal year with respect to not only assigning staff resources, but then, of course, funding those staff resources. So before the commission this evening, you have a resolution for your consideration that, if approved, would do 2 things. It would adopt a final work plan and then separately a final operating budget. And as we provide in our agenda report, you know, not much has changed in these documents since you last saw them in April, and before then we sent them off for public review, including sending them to our 42 funding agencies. With respect to the work plan, it returns to you entirely intact, and it continues to identify about 24 administrative and planning activities that range from your municipal service review work to special projects that were most likely vetted initially at our strategic planning session in January, and includes such things as restarting our outreach in the country club area with respect to developing some momentum on an island annexation program. As for the details, you can see all of the items, the 24 or so items for the work plan, if you take a look at Exhibit A to your draft resolution, and that includes staff's attempt at prioritizing. And then if you keep going into the resolution and you look at Exhibit B, you will see the Budget Committee's recommendation on a final budget, a budget that is nearly, not entirely, but nearly identical to what you saw in April. We have done some smoothing of the numbers based on some updated calculations. And the budget continues to be highlighted by a cascading recommendation to kind of break from the recent status quo and go ahead and fund a full-time analyst with the principal aim of helping to expand Marin LAFCO's organizational capacity. And it's the funding of the analysts, not entirely, but certainly to a large degree, that helps to explain why you're looking at a 24% increase in our bottom line, and you'd be going from I think 374,000 this year to about 464,000 next year. Certainly a big one-year jump, but one that the Budget Committee has spent a lot of time considering, and is primarily premised on this idea that you have this municipal service review work to do. You really have two paths. You can do it by way of staff resources, or you can use outside consultants. The conclusion of the Budget Committee was, well, if we're going to do this work, why don't we develop the expertise in-house and then use that to our advantage going forward? So with that, I did just want to point out that if you take a look at the second page of the operating budget, if you turn that over, you'll see the revenue side of things, and you'll see on purpose a $50,000 operating deficit. And again, as we talked about in April, that's there in order to help soften the blow to the funding agencies. Specifically, let's use $50,000 out of our fund balance to help spread out the impact of this increase over 2 years. So rather than see a 24% increase in 15-16, the agencies will collectively see a 12% increase in 15-16. And then they'll see another 12% increase, presumably, in 16-17. So with that, I did just want to point out in your folders for today's meeting, and we do have some extras here, our intern, Kevin, did do a little math exercise for you to show you what this means when you approve a budget. And you can see where this $378,000 that we'd be asking from our funding agencies, how that's broken out among our 42 funding agencies. Obviously, the county takes on a third, the 11 cities take on a third, and then the 30 independent districts take on a third. So that's just for information. So with that, I'd certainly defer to Commissioner Condon, given she's the last of the Budget Committee members in attendance, and then ultimately ask that you open up the hearing, take any comments, and then consider our recommendation. Thank you so much.
Okay, just before Commissioner Condon has her words, if any, on this, it seems to me we've followed the normal procedure which are laid out in our guidelines, policies and guidelines, that the genesis of the work really came from the strategic planning retreat that we discussed. The draft was put together and the Budget Committee met and worked hard on it. It came back to the Commission. It was approved to send out to the funding agencies to look at and comment back to us. That's been incorporated in. Now it's back to us. And we have a continuing public hearing on this matter. And so we followed our normal procedure. So Commissioner Condon, did you have anything to add from the committee's work?
No, we felt that it was a real reasonable way to go, and that actually getting somebody on board, I think that person will be able to be well utilized even beyond this scope of work. And so we felt that it was really totally reasonable. It was impossible to put that kind of a burden on Candace and Keene by themselves. So anyway, we all felt very comfortable about this.
Great. Thank you very much. Do any of the commissioners have any questions of either the executive officer or Commissioner Condon on the what's in the budget, the process before we open the continued hearing? Okay, hearing none. If my memory is correct, we continued the hearing from when we opened it back very early in the spring.
Well, actually, technically, we did close the hearing because we were taking an action in April on a proposed budget, so we'd ask that you open up a brand-new hearing just on this final document.
Okay, and I shall do that. I'm going to open the public hearing on the final proposed Commission work program and budget for the upcoming fiscal year, FY 16 and 17. 15 and 16. Okay, I don't have any cards or any indication from the public. Does anybody in the public wish to comment? If not, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner
Sorry.
Baker moves to close the public hearing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Phillips seconds the motion. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye, please. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstaining? The public hearing is closed, and we'll move to any further discussions on the matter, including a potential motion to approve Resolution 15-04, which would adopt the final work program and the budget. Yes.
Yeah, Keen, have you gotten any feedback from the towns, cities that might indicate they have any problems with their participation?
Well, we certainly got, or I got some discussions, verbal discussions, but I had been kind of setting this discussion up for the last year, having attended 2 city manager annual conference or retreats, and so I think they were well kind of anticipating this movement. In fact, the only comment we did receive, and we did include it in our packet, was just from a private citizen, which we've addressed. But in terms of the agency's thoughts on this, I like to think that they've seen the work plan, they kind of see the nexus of where this is going, and to date, I think they're okay with it by virtue of no pushback, at least nothing in writing.
Okay. You probably would have heard or read something if there was
Yeah.
some real resistance. Thank you.
Commissioner Phillips?
I have a question. I apologize, I didn't have a chance to ask this question to our staff earlier, but I'm reviewing the 14, 15, 15, 16. Oh,
Microphone.
sorry. I'm reviewing the subject revenues for 14, 15, 15, 16. And I note that San Rafael went from 83, 14, 15 to 98 in 15, 16. And that change, well, I can't verify, or let's say I didn't verify, but I find that change larger than I would have expected.
And Commissioner Phillips, thank you for pointing this out. And again, now we're referencing the additional spreadsheet that we had brought for today's meeting. And so the way the LAFCO budget process works is ultimately we base the contribution levels on what the state controller's office reports in their annual report on general tax revenue. And so while unfortunately we don't list it here, the numbers reported for 14-15, I believe, are based on the 11-12 fiscal year, which at the time was what the state controller's office had most recently issued, whereas the numbers for 15-16, I believe, are for 12-13. So there's this inherent 3-year lag in the reporting. And the reason why San Rafael's proportional increase went up is between 11-12 and 12-13, they did proportionally, well, number-wise, $15 million more in general tax revenue, and proportionally the other cities didn't do as well. So it's kind of the gift of prosperity. As such, you get a slightly bigger portion of the LAFCO budget.
Yeah, I understand that piece, but I would still appreciate you confirming those numbers because let's take Novato, for example. Mm-hmm. Went down a touch. We didn't go down, but rather 15 million. I'm still surprised by that change, even considering the change. I'll say the change in reference to the year of each columns.
We will certainly verify, and in fact, we go through the auditor's office for that verification process. And I did misspeak. I said that they were based on general tax revenue. Well, they're actually based on general tax revenue and any subventions. So if, for example, San Rafael received in the year 12-13 a state grant for X, that gets calculated into it. But the point certainly is taken. We'll verify these numbers with the auditor, and actually the invoices get signed off on the auditor before they go out.
If you would, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? So Keen, if I may, on this, assuming that the resolution would pass, would that be pending clarification on the items that you and Commissioner Phelps just discussed?
No, because ultimately what you're being asked to approve is the total dollar amount for
Okay.
all the funding agencies. The apportionment will get worked out between staff and the auditor's office, and I will provide an email verification or update to the commission on this topic.
All right. Any other questions? Do I hear a motion to approve then the work plan and budget for the fiscal year 2015,
I'll move.
2016?
I'll move to adopt Resolution 15-04, a final work plan and budget for fiscal year 2015 and 2016.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Condon and second by Commissioner Phillips to approve the fiscal year 2015, 2016 final work plan and budget. All commissioners in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstain? The motion passes. I'll move next. I beg your pardon? The score. Oh,
54-9.
you can read.
Halftime 54-42.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to move now to the item number 8, which is proposed approval to enter into a contract with the California Public Employees Retirement System to pre-fund other post-employment benefits. This is a matter that the commission has been involved in diligently over the last at least 3 years, and hopefully we are coming to completion of that. But Kane, if you could
Absolutely.
give us kind of lay of the land, give us your report, and then I'd like to ask Commissioner Burdick to follow up on that with the report of the policy committee, which has been involved in this matter for well over 3 years as well.
Absolutely, Chair, and thank you. So as mentioned, this item is for the commission to address and take up a recommendation from your policy committee that tackles an issue that has been on the commission's mind for at least the last few years, starting when you experience your first employee retirement, and that is to figure out a way to start pre-funding your retiree health care obligations, which is more commonly referred to as your other post-employment benefits, or OPEB. And so, as Commissioner Burdick will probably attest to in just a bit, up until recently, it was our expectation we'd figure out a way to come to you with an agreement where we'd be joining the County of Marin system with respect to pre-funding our OPEB obligations. Well, that option is just not available to us. That said, the policy committee brings you tonight an alternate that we feel pretty good about, and ultimately is to enter into a contract with CalPERS, a contract that is attached to your agenda report. I believe it's attached 1, and ultimately would allow you to invest monies on an annual basis in the amount that you choose appropriate, where you'd be joining the economies of scale of CalPERS' other 400 members, and presumably get earnings back that would help, again, fund your obligations with respect to OPEB. Now, there is some urgency in considering this item tonight, and that is the actuarial report that this commission previously had contracted for and delivered in 2013 goes stale in the eyes of CalPERS at the end of this month. And so in order to make use of that prior investment, we're asking that the commission jump right in from its engagement to marriage and go forward with the contract tonight. And that includes taking up a couple of implementing measures that CalPERS requires of any contracting entity. And let me just quickly go over those. First, CalPERS requires that any contracting agency identify up to 2 delegates to be able to make transactions in and out of the benefit trust account. So the policy committee's recommendation is tab by position the executive officer and chair. Okay, so that's the first implementing issue. The second is you need to pick an investment strategy. And as you can see in the paperwork, CalPERS offers 3 kind of template formulas based on a difference of risk and reward. Budget Committee believes what is referred to as Strategy 2 makes the most sense given our local conditions. And I'd be happy to get into more detail on this point if desired. And then finally, while not necessarily required right now, one way or the other, you do need to make a contribution. And so our recommendation this evening is that you authorize an amount of $19,339 to go into this benefit trust account. And that would cover just what we had budgeted but did not spend for OPED in 13-14 and 14-15. And then we would likely come back to you as early as August or later with then a request to make a separate contribution covering the 15-16 fiscal year once, and this is a key issue, once we kind of tie up loose ends with MSERA. And very quickly, we do have an agreement with MSERA that allows us to kind of pay as you go for an existing retiree. Ultimately, the goal here is just to be fully on board with CalPERS and take out of or fund out of that account not only our existing OPED obligations, but then again, develop some earnings and interest to pay for future retirees. So I'm going to stop there, and as the chair mentioned, Commissioner Burdick has a better grasp of kind of the context of how we kind of came to this, and if for no other reason, for the public record, kind of explain your options and how this option came to be.
The committee does recommend that the commission enter into this contract, and Keene's report is a pretty thorough and accurate explanation of the option here and how it would work. Historically, for those who weren't on the commission 4 years ago, when Mr. Banning got ready to retire, he contacted MSERA and inquired as to the mechanics of getting his retiree health care, which he was entitled to under his contract with us and under our policy, just mechanically how it would get paid, how much his share would be if there was any, and how much our share would be, and how the money would get transferred. And he was told by MSERA, well, you're a member of the retirement system, but LAFCO has no agreement with us or any provision for retiree health care at all. Sorry, you'll have to do something else. So he reported back to us, and it was at that point that we realized a couple things. One, we needed to go and do some work with MSERA, and two, we were unfunded. We didn't have any money in the bank, which we had set aside specifically for this purpose, and no one on the commission wanted to be included in that group of public employers whose unfunded retiree health care obligations, like Detroit and Chicago and San Jose, were as great, if not greater, than their pension obligations. So we entered into, over a period of the next 18 months, maybe a little longer, one of the most frustrating, convoluted, irritating, dealing with MSERA and with the county to try and get this problem solved. The county negotiates the health care contracts. MSERA is not involved in the direct provision of health care benefits, but MSERA administers the payment of the premiums from retirees under the various plans, most of which is deducted, to the extent the retirees have to pay, is deducted from their monthly pension check. And the employer, the public employer, whether it's the county or Novato Fire or Marin Municipal or whoever, pays whatever their obligation is. And of course, no public employer is required to have retiree health care. If you don't want to have retiree health care in your public employer, you don't have to have it. And I don't know what Novato Fire's provision is. Certainly probably not the same as the county's. Marin Municipal may have some different plan. The county, to be perfectly frank, was not the least bit cooperative or helpful at all. I felt like I was Attila the Hun at the gate. I finally had to personally call the county council, Pat Faulkner, who was an old friend of mine, and promise him that we weren't expecting the county to pay for any of this. They seemed to think that this was some scam we were trying to run so that the county would pay. I'd sent them an email and a letter saying, look, it's totally our obligation. We'll pay it. We just need the mechanics to get it done. Well, we finally got a working relationship so that the retiree health care became available. The county now recognizes our people as being enrolled in the system. And so then finally we got to the point where it's, okay, we need to start not only paying Mr. Banning's our obligation, our contractual obligation, paying that, we need to start pre-funding for our other two employees so that 12, 15, 19 years from now, hopefully when they retire, and they're in tier 4, I think, right? Candace may be in tier 3. And Peter was in tier 1. The county has various retirement tiers, and the higher your number, the newer you are as a member, and the less your health care benefits are on a monthly basis. So we went back and talked to the county again. And I think most of you were on the commission when we got a letter from the county manager 3 months ago, something like that, which in essence said, we have no interest in helping you out in this regard. It's too difficult for us to deal with right now. Well, they didn't even say we're sorry. And what we were asking them to do, you know how they do this, how they run it? They have the same contract with PERS. All we were asking them to do was amend the contract to put us in there. They wouldn't do it. So we direct Keene to contact PERS. He contacts PERS, and it is an absolute direct 180-degree example of government. PERS falls all over themselves getting us information, data, contract forms. The guy who runs this whole system says, would you like me to come to a meeting of your board and commission and answer questions and tell you guys how it works? Gee, we don't think that's necessary. So, this is a system that covers the state and a whole bunch of other local agencies, some of them very small, a lot of districts. It's conservatively run. The administrative fee is very, very low. It's 10 basis points. There is an error, only one error in Keene's report. If you look at page 3, under contribution amount, it should read, CalPERS does not require the commission. We have to pay something initially to get in, but if we wanted to, we would never have to make a contribution thereafter. Now, why you would want to join a trust to fund a benefit and not put any money in it, I don't know. Maybe you had a bad year and just couldn't do it that year. But the budget for fiscal year 15, well, Keene's explained the thing. We have the money on hand, and we budgeted for this in the past, and it's simply going to be a matter of transferring it to CalPERS once the contract is signed, and it'll start earning, hopefully, under Plan 2, Option 2, about 4%, something like that. It's a pretty modest, conservative investment pool. I think it's kind of any one of us would feel comfortable putting our own money in. It's not very aggressive, and something you could sleep at night having done this, rather than Plan 1 had a lot of foreign-based equities, and we didn't know how many of those were in Greece. So we decided that was probably not a very good option. So that's the scoop, and it has been 3 years, and it's been, and I'm supposed to know a lot about public sector pensions and retirement. I had this one of the most frustrating experiences I've had in years. And our actuary, by the way, Miss Oliver, this was one of the options she discussed with us way back in 2012. And she's terrific, and her actuarial reports are always very good. She's got a wonderful reputation in this business, so I think we can rely quite comfortably on all that.
Thanks, Chris. As Chris pointed out, this is something we tackled as the commission's direction 3 to 4 years ago, and we soon got to a fork in the road. One was we could have contacted CalPERS directly, or we could have worked with the county, and we thought the more prudent decision was work here at home. That didn't work out for whatever reason, but in the last few months, and I'll give much credit to Keene for blazing this trail, we've had a very good reception from CalPERS, where we would have gone anyway through the county, and they have provided us with, I think, a very good package. The proposed investment strategy, as Chris pointed out, is prudent. It's in the middle, and it gets us into the OPEC trust, and I think this is something I never thought we'd see after we got rejected by working with the county. So, as another member of that committee, I wholeheartedly recommend that the commission approve the entering into the contract with CalPERS for our employees. As I said, this is just the beginning, and it will provide a process as the commission continues on over the years. So either Chris or Keene, I'm sure, are available if you have any particular questions on this matter. We'd be glad to address and answer them. Commissioner Phillips?
I just have one question. It's too bad that you had such a bad experience with MSERA. The city of San Rafael is a member of MSERA, as you probably know.
I represented the cops and firefighters. Got them in way back in the
I
70s.
just want to say MSERA we were able to work with MSERA.
Their staff was helpful.
Yeah, it's
when pushed.
Yeah, they were helpful. The county administrator made a management decision that this was probably more effort than really was warranted from the county's viewpoint. We understood that, and so we took the other route. But I don't want to give the feeling that Sarah was a problem.
Well, that's based on your experience, so it's unfortunate. But my question was related to the investment return, because up to several months ago, the MSERA expected rate of return or calculated rate of return for amortization purposes was 7.5, recently returned to 7.25. So I'm curious about CalPERS at 4, whatever you said.
This is the anticipated rate of return on this trust, which is more narrowly invested in a much smaller body of stuff than the CalPERS General Trust. When CalPERS invests the normal employer contribution and the normal employee contribution that comes in from the city of Mill Valley, for example, goes into this huge pool with state money and district money, and all the classified employees of school districts are in CalPERS. It's an immense, well, they're the biggest investor in the United States. This is not the same, this is an entirely different pool of money.
So
One, two, the 7.5% assumed rate of return, there are very few actuaries around today who will tell you that that is a prudent rate to assume, even when you include smoothing. You know, the ups and downs, actuarial want to have a smoothing process over 25 or 30 years. And, you know, in the roaring, you know, in the first couple of years of this century, I mean, retirement systems were making 17, 19, 20%.
Well, but I'm more curious about strategy of forming a very small pool, when I would think that normally one would lean towards combining with others, particularly for safeguards, more diverse, et cetera. But particularly if the expected rate of return is significantly different. Because if, in fact, the fund is experiencing, I don't know what CalPERS is, but again, my reference would be MSERA, 7.25. If there is a difference between 7.25 and the 4%, and it's an actual experienced difference over time, with the safeguard of being in a larger pool, I guess I question whether or not that's the right approach.
Well, first of all, this PERS pool is bigger than the MSERA pool. I mean, when MSERA assumes a rate of 7.25 on its fund, that includes the county money, your money, Novato's money, which is probably an amount bigger than this trust, but nowhere near as big as the CalPERS trust itself.
No, I realize that.
MSERA has, I don't know how many outside consultants and investment advisors they use, and they invest in real estate, they invest in equities, they I don't know whether they're into hedge funds or not. CalPERS is, I think, getting out of hedge funds. And then where they're putting their money and where they're getting their rate of return, I don't know. The Plan 1 that CalPERS has here, and CalPERS, as you probably read in the paper this week, is also trying to cut the number of investment people, consultants that it uses from 200 to 100 in the next 2 fiscal years because the fees are so high.
Well, that's one of the reasons why you would join a larger pool,
Yeah,
it would seem to
well.
me.
Chris, I was just looking at attachment 5 provided, which gives the 3 strategies, and strategy 2 is the long-term expected rate of return is 6.73.
Yeah.
And the greatest return is strategy number 1, which had more funds in global equities, which we felt a little uncomfortable with, and therefore recommended that the second strategy. So there are only 3 strategies that we can choose. And the lowest one was 6.12, which was pretty loaded with fixed and securities.
But I thought the reference was for something.
That was what
On the short term, I think.
that could be.
You made reference to for something.
Where did you get 4?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I'm looking at
Keen, where did I get 4? Was it a wholly made up? Fantasize
Admittedly,
number?
I'm not sure where you got the 4, but just for the benefit of directing the commission to the chart that Chair Blanchfield was referencing. So in attachment 5, you'll see PowerPoint presentation, and this is the standard kind of show that CalPERS does and what they would have done had they come tonight. And here you can see over the pages, I think 6 through 9, the breakdown in expected returns based on one of these 3 strategies that you choose. So, for example, with respect to strategy 2, their expected long-term return is 6.7% compared to 7.28 if you went into their what they call strategy 1, and if you went ultra conservative, you drop down another point to 6.12. CalPERS makes it very clear in their documentation and in their presentation, they are as conservative as they can be. And so part of that is, of course, good for us because we don't have much skin to lose in investments. The Commission's pleasure on looking at alternatives. One point I would point out, though, is in the contract, and we did have Counsel Zaltman look at this for us, you can get out of this contract with a majority of your board signing a letter of termination. There's no commitment to stay. So you enter the contract tonight. A year from now, some things come to our attention. We can come back to you with another discussion. I guess that's my added context.
And I don't know where Commissioner Phillips, where I got the 1.5 from.
I was curious
May
about
may
that.
well be the point spread on the game we're not watching.
I think one of the reasons, again, that we went with strategy 2 versus strategy 1, which would have a higher expected long-term rate of return, is that about 60% of the funds were in global equity, and you can't get from CalPERS exactly what that means. You have to take it on their word. It's global equity. And many of them are U.S. funds, but many of them are foreign funds.
Yeah, it wouldn't be 60%. It just wouldn't.
So that's why we went with strategy 2, which would reduce that to 40%, and which you'll probably get most of your money. So
I don't know that sounds like a completely thoroughly, vetted reason, though. We are kind of in a global capital market. So, at the end of the day, are there any other risk factors that would lead you against strategy one?
I don't think we discussed them. The primary emphasis was on strategy one in the global equity part, not knowing what that was exactly and not being able to get from CalPERS a breakdown
Okay.
of where those funds were going.
I mean, it looks like, unless I'm reading it wrong, 82% of all the investment assets managed by CalPERS are in strategy one. So that goes to Gary's point about diversification of the portfolio, at least, or the investor portfolio. But just wanted to point that out.
Well, that's something for us to discuss. If the commission feels that it's better to have a more weighted investment strategy with equities, then clearly that is strategy one.
And, Mr. Chair, I don't want to hold myself out as any expert whatsoever in investment or what to do
But-
with money. I was decent at earning it, and my SEP IRA, I give the whole thing to a guy in Santa Fe, and I just tell him, be very conservative, and I don't worry about it. So I have no idea. I don't even know what's on the difference between NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. People think it's not risky and prudent to go with one. I'm just a very, very, personally, very conservative person when it comes to money. And I'd rather earn less and sleep at night than earn more and worry. But that's just a entirely unprofessional, personal bias. And if there are commissioners who understand this stuff and think that one is prudent and, it's worth the additional projected, 1%, that's, it's fine with me.
Well, did CalPERS make a recommendation considering our size and
No.
limited number of employees, et cetera?
These are canned forms. We have no leverage, and this is entirely a take it or leave it deal. We're either
Yeah.
going to sign this contract the way it is. I mean, they've got some big counties in there, and everybody signs the same contract. If you don't want to sign the contract, fine, don't join our trust.
But if your question is, did CalPERS make recommendations between the strategies, the answer is no.
I'm not terribly surprised. I thought maybe in your discussion it might have come up.
No. But, this is something that we should discuss. We took what we felt was the more prudent, conservative gambit, but that doesn't mean that strategy one is a bad one.
What's your philosophy? I understand conservatism. What is your investment period? Because as individuals, we might be looking at a shorter horizon than perhaps investing for other retirements, which is ways out on the horizon. So what horizon is your reference point?
Most retirement systems on their retirement portfolio, once again, we're looking what the actuaries want, the projection out 20, 25, or 30 years, depending on what the employer wants to do actuarially with its contribution and its contribution rate.
Right.
The shorter the term, probably the higher the contribution rate. The longer the term, you're going to have smoothing, and hopefully things work out better. But I don't think we didn't ask, and the materials we've got don't tell us whether they're looking what long-term to them means, except it's more than 5 years or 10 years. Yeah. I'm kind of curious, has the city's rate, employer rate at MSERA stayed stable, gone up, down? Different for miscellaneous and safety?
Well, there's a significant difference between public safety.
Oh, sure,
and
I mean, the
miscellaneous.
normal Everywhere it is.
And so, I'm sorry, your question is?
Well, I mean, what's the city's experience at MSER with your normal employer contribution rate? Has it remained relatively stable the last couple of years? Gone up, gone down?
It's projected over 17 years to be pretty flat. And we're looking at a 17-year time.
17 years.
We're a fully amortized unfunded liability.
Good.
And that's one of the differences between CalPERS and MSERA. We can go 17, we can go a shorter period.
Right.
CalPERS is, as I understand, I'm not deep into CalPERS, but I understand it's over a longer period of time, being 31 years. Frankly, we're not dealing with a huge amount of money here.
19,000.
Yeah.
No.
So it's a little bit, it's not completely academic, but it's somewhat academic,
That's what LeBron gets for each free throw made.
maybe.
Well, trying to move this off center. Any other commissioners have any viewpoints on this? We could just take a straw poll on what strategy folks would like to have us agree with. This can be, Keen, this can be changed if we change
Yes.
our mind?
It can be modified, it can be terminated, as long as we get a majority of the commission to say it so. We write the letter to CalPERS.
Carla?
Yeah, I just like to make a comment. For those of us that, well, of you, because I was here, that weren't here, you cannot begin to imagine all the work that Chris has done to get where we are today.
Carla, a microphone.
Microphone.
Okay, again? I just said that you can't imagine what Chris did, all the efforts that he went to get where we are today. Peter would have been in a pickle, and Keene we wouldn't have known what to do with Keene. We probably wouldn't have had Keene. And I really feel that Chris is really an expert in this. If you weren't before, you sure are now.
Not on how they invest their money.
And, well, you know, we all know that CalPERS has made some humongous errors in recent years, and we have no control over that. You know, you pick door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3, and you really don't know what's behind that door until it's too late to do anything about it. So, at any rate, I really would like to express my thanks and confidence to Chris for getting where we are now.
Does that mean anything in regards to strategy 1, 2, or 3?
I trust Chris.
Okay.
Mrs. Burdick doesn't when it comes, I have no checkbook. Can I have $20? You know, what are you going to spend it on?
But the creditors aren't knocking at
Oh, no,
your door,
no,
right?
no.
So,
She's a bookkeeper.
Unless there are any more direct questions on it, this is a public hearing. I'd like to go to the public and then come back and have us come up with some decision on the overall steps we were to take and the strategy. So I'm going to open the public hearing at this point, and anybody from the audience that wants to address the commission on this matter, this is your opportunity. You got a dog in this fight, Peter?
Yes, actually I do, and I was here at the beginning of this process. I know what a hassle it's been to take it, and I just wanted to say thank you, Chris, and thank you all for staying with it and doing what your policy said it would do. You guys have stuck to that, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other comments before I entertain a motion to close the public hearing? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Phelps' motion, second Commissioner Baker. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstain? Public hearings closed. To move this on, I would entertain a motion to adopt the, to approve the contract and the attached resolution and investment policy number 2, and authorize the executive director to draw down the agency's fund balance to begin our prepayment process.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion, Commissioner Phillips, and a second by Commissioner Baker, to approve basically alternative 1 laid out in the commission staff report. All those commissioners in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstain? The motion passes. Thank you very much. And we will move on to the other report from the Policy Committee. This is item number 9, the update to the policies, procedures, and guidelines that deal with our regulatory policies. And Keene?
Well, thank you, Chair. So I'll do maybe a 4-minute overview, and then I'll defer to the Policy Committee on how you want to proceed. But as mentioned, this item is a follow-up from your April meeting, and it's an opportunity for the Commission to consider the recommendations of your Policy Committee with respect to changes, tweaks, and amendments therein to the existing policies and procedures you have on the books, specifically as it relates to your regulatory activities. And this is all being brought to you as part of this ongoing comprehensive policy update that we started about a year ago. And just parenthetically, I'll note the work we've done to date. We've kept, are keeping a running tab of all the items we've brought to you and that you've tentatively accepted. And you can see that as part of this agenda report in attachment 2. So that's some context to where we've been. Back to this item. This is the second of 4 planned phases, and again deals with your regulatory activities. And in particular, what we're trying to do at the committee level is better telegraph, review, and act on boundary changes and outside service extensions and all of the regulatory activities this commission is asked to take up on behalf of the legislature in a manner that is not only consistent with current state law. Keep in mind that a lot of these policies have not really been updated in any holistic manner for a couple of decades, but also, perhaps more to the point, to be consistent with membership preferences. Obviously, the legislature gives you a lot of latitude. And so what the Policy Committee is trying to do here is refine the policies and procedures specific to these boundary change and outside service issues in a manner that you want to see LAFCO pursue here in Marin County. And so we're bringing you this second set of, or the second phase, simply for a first reading tonight. Okay, and the goal is not for you to approve it per se, but just so that you feel comfortable enough that we can proceed with a public review. And that includes sending out our proposed revisions to all 65 public agencies here in Marin County, because more times than not, they're the applicant and they're going to be affected by these changes. So as you look at the staff report and you look at attachment 1, you'll see a full listing of every change that we're proposing here. And keep in mind, there's a lot of red in attachment 1. Well, a lot of that are just formatting and technical improvements and probably don't rise to a policy discussion for this commission. But there are a handful of top-tier issues that we do want to highlight for the commission because they do have a fundamental effect on how you operate and how applicants go through the LAFCO process. And beginning on page 3 of your staff report, hopefully we've done a good job at identifying those key changes that we're proposing, like establishing factors that quantify the ultimate question that often is before this commission, which is, when is the timing of a boundary change appropriate? Okay, we're trying to put some language in your policies that telegraph that out, not only to applicants, but for your staff's benefit as well. Additionally, we've established a whole new set of procedures relative to how you would process and act on outside service requests. And that includes, and this is important, assigning some specific authority to your chair to deal with issues of public health or safety when you have an emergency issue and we might take a while to get a quorum of the commission to act on. So that's a key change as well. And then, of course, because it has been a topic of interest for this commission since I've been here, we've established a section specifically to deal with unincorporated islands, and in particular, game planning and incentivizing applicants to bring forward annexations that don't just chip away at an island, but really incentivize the idea of eliminating an island all at once. So that's kind of a 10,000-foot overview of the process to date. Again, this is just to make sure that you don't see any immediate red flags and that you're comfortable in having the 65 agencies and the general public take a look at this, provide their comments, and then we'll come back to you at your next meeting with the results. But that said, it's an opportunity to get some initial feedback. So I'm going to refer to the chair and the rest of the policy committee members on how you want to proceed. I'd be happy to go as much detail as you want, or we could just, again, stick on these kind of top-tier issues. Your preference.
Okay, Keene, I think you summarized that real well. The other thing I'd like to point out, you pointed out there's a lot of red and blue in this document, but most of that is formatting. So one of the tasks in updating the policies, procedures, and guidelines is to get a consistent format, and that's what has been done here and will be done throughout. The other thing is to be responsive to the commissioner saying, you know, there are a lot of terms in the Act and in our policies, and not everyone understands what they mean. So in an attempt to make this more layman-friendly and to lay out what the words and phrases mean in here, there are a number of definitions that are also placed in here. So anyway, that's why you will see a lot of markup. And as Keene pointed out, there are key few matters that we will bring your attention to. One is the protection of agricultural lands, which there's a little different wording than has been here beforehand. The concept of the emergency permit and the authorization in an emergency to have the chair authorize it, but the project comes back to the commission to ratify after the emergency is passed. And the concept of looking at islands as a one area instead of, as Keene pointed out, chipping away at it one at a time. So I thought maybe the best way to do this, this section is divided into 6 sections, is to go through section by section, and those key things that we would like some response on, we'll identify them. And then if others on the commission have any wording that they would like to see changed, we can do it on a section by section basis. But I'm going to open the public hearing first so we can get comments from the public on any matter here that they wish to comment on, and we can use that in our consideration. So I have nothing from the public to indicate anybody wishes to speak, but the hearing is now open. Any member of the public that would like to speak on this matter, now is your opportunity. Okay, I'll entertain a motion from the commission to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Baker and second by Commissioner Condon. All those in favor signify by saying aye to close the public hearing.
Aye.
Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstaining? The public hearing is closed. So the first section deals with the urban center policy, which you'll find on page 52 of the document. Keem, I just have one suggestion when this document is mailed out to the other agencies in the county is somehow take the dark block away where the number is on the bottom of the page. It would make us visually challenged people much easier to
Or make it a
read it.
lighter color like yellow or something and make the number inside bigger, darker,
I
something.
mean, I saw it with no problem, but I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Well, for those of us that are long in years, we'd appreciate it.
Will do, will do.
Okay, Keene, the urban center policy, which is on page 52, which puts an emphasis on centering urban development along the 101 corridor, which is essentially consistent with the countywide plan in most, as I understand it, municipal general plans.
Yeah, so, we're looking at page 52 and what is identified as F Urban Center Policy. So the baseline item here is the commission already has an existing statement that essentially says, you know, we support the countywide general plan and the idea of city-centered growth. Well, in the policy committee's discussion, we went a little further and decided, you know, it's probably appropriate that LAFCO has its own independent standalone statement on where it's going to prioritize growth and development here and going forward. And so what you see here is LAFCO putting its own footprint down and saying, we're going to direct as best we can any future new urban growth and development along the 101 corridor. And parenthetically, it's not connected to the countywide general plan. It's not connected to anything else. This is your own statement that you're making to applicants saying, by inference, if you want to do something out in West Marin, well, we have a policy right here that directly tells us this is not the best location for future urban uses.
Right, so it's consistent and reinforces the countywide plan.
It reinforces it through your independent lens.
Right. So anyway, that was one of the major things we tackled. And if there are no comments on it, I'll go to the next one, which is the application fee refund, which is found on page 60. And I believe this came up, a couple of years ago at our strategic planning retreat on how we get application fees back to applicants where their project doesn't go forth.
And additionally, Chair, your existing policies, you know, contemplate the concept that applicant X is going to come to you one day and kind of provide some kind of narrative discussion as to why a reduction is appropriate. Well, one of the things we've talked about here is, well, what about just an outright fee waiver? And so that is included here, i.e. someone can come to you now and say, I don't think any fee is appropriate relative to X, Y, and Z reasons. And certainly may have merit as we go forward with perhaps island annexations where the commission, again, this is speculative, may want to do as much as it can to incentivize a project to come forward.
Okay, any comments on that section? I'll go to the next section, which deals with agricultural lands policies. It's really left pretty much the way it has been for a number of years, which is to discourage annexation of lands that are currently in agricultural use, or lands that are qualify as agricultural lands. So it's basically the agricultural protection part of our responsibility under the Hertzberg Act.
And through the chair, I would just add, so we're looking at page 52, section H. So again, the bulk of the existing policy stays intact with some narrative improvements, although we did make one substantive change. The existing policy calls out that Marin LAFCO doesn't want to be in the business of annexing ag land to cities. That makes sense. But then it also has a statement that says, or sanitary districts. So in the policy committee, we talked about it, and we said, you know what? There may be benefit for sanitary districts to annex ag lands. For example, we just dealt with 1501 Lucas Valley Road, where, you have a septic system on top of the hill. Well, if that septic system starts failing, that effluent is literally just going to go down to the subdivision right below. So what we're trying to do here is just simply not purposely discourage people from coming forward when they have septic systems on the brink, even though it may be in an ag designated area, to at least engage LAFCO. It's not necessarily saying that LAFCO is going to say yes to your proposal, but we're not outright saying don't even bother coming to talk to us.
Okay. And the other thing, too, beforehand, it just singled out sanitary districts. There are other kinds of special districts that promote urban growth, which in agricultural lands. Okay, any questions or comments on that section? Moving to the next one, which is found on page 53, right opposite 52, is the outside service agreement policy. And that does add some new information. King, could you just
Absolutely.
hit the highlights
So,
of that one?
And the baseline is as of 2001, the legislature amended your Principal Act to say anytime a city or a special district wants to provide new or extended service beyond their jurisdictional boundary by contract or agreement, it needs to first get a LAFCO approval. And then it turns around and tells the LAFCO, you can approve these requests, but only under certain conditions, i.e., if the property lies within the affected agency's sphere of influence, LAFCO, you can go ahead and approve that outside service contract so long as you make a finding that this is in anticipation of a future annexation. It then also says, okay, LAFCO, you want to approve a service contract beyond the sphere of influence? You can do that, but you need to make a public health or safety finding. So that's the existing baseline. What we've done here is add two key components to help effectuate the implementation of this code section. The first is, what happens when we have a property owner knock on our door and say, my septic system is shot, I need to connect to the sewer district right now? Well, under typical processes, an annexation by law cannot get to you any sooner than 30 days. There's just no way we can get an annexation to you any faster than that. So what we're trying to do here is outline a process where the chair can go ahead, work with staff, and expedite an approval, let's say within hours if not days, or days if not hours, and then come back to the commission at our next meeting for formal ratification. I think that process allows us to deal with emergencies on a much more efficient manner. So that's the first key change. The second is, and this can get tricky, is we've decided to take an attempt at defining some key terminology here. As I mentioned, the law says an applicant, a city or district, has to come to you to provide new or extended services. So as you can see on page 54 under section K subsection 4, we're trying to define the term service, new, and extended. And I really want to pay attention to the phrase extended because this is a tricky issue for most LAFCOs. What does it mean to provide an extended service? So what we've done here is tie the concept of extended to a new use that is triggered by a land use change, i.e., if, and this is my favorite example for North Marin Water District, okay, we have that gas station and cigarette store that the district serves through an outside service contract right on the other side of the county boundary. Okay, well, let's just say Sonoma County Board of Supervisors decide they're going to permit an extended or a use to allow for an extra service bay, and that's going to require a couple new spigots of a water service. Well, under this policy, it doesn't change the zoning, it doesn't change the land use designation, so they don't need to come to LAFCO. That's a minor enough change on the local footprint where they don't need to come to LAFCO. However, same facility, let's say the gas station owner wants to sell and allow for a 50-seat restaurant. That's an intensity that would require likely a pre-zoning change. Well, here we're telling the applicant, the district, you've got to come to LAFCO if you want to be able to serve that. So I think we're creating a high enough bar where we're not interfering with modest changes in the local footprint, but any significant changes in which the land use authority is now having to change their ordinances to accommodate a new development and intensity, well, they should come to LAFCO. And LAFCO does have a role through the legislature in saying, yes, that service extension or extended service makes sense. So that's our attempt here.
Okay.
And I have other examples for North Marin Water District, Jack, if you want.
Please.
Okay, any questions on that section? And the final one deals with unincorporated island annexations, and that is on page 56.
Yeah, so a couple of components here. One is we wanted to memorialize in writing that the commission is going to look at any proposal from an applicant that seeks to annex just a portion of an island, a known island. And we are telling the applicant out front by way of this policy language, we're going to probably look to exercise our discretion and expand that proposal on the dais to take in the entire island, i.e., you might want to do a lot more homework and community outreach to bring in more of this than just a single property. And then the second component here is that you're saying out loud, this commission is committed to developing an island annexation program with all 12 land use authorities, okay? You're putting that on writing, and what that does is it provides your staff some coverage and some merit to go to the city councils and the county saying the commission has made this a clear policy objective that we want to work together. And then finally, and this is key, the commission or the policy committee is punting on the idea of defining what substantially surrounded is until we have those discussions with the 11 or 12 land use authorities. And in particular, keep in mind, the legislature gives expedited annexation proceedings to either entirely surrounded islands, like Country Club, or substantially surrounded islands as defined by the local commission. You can define what a substantially surrounded island is. It could be anything that's surrounded by 99% of the neighboring city, or it could be 51%. And you have a lot of discretion. What we're doing here is we're kind of giving an olive branch to land use authorities saying, we have an interest in going forward with this, but we're going to wait on doing any definitions until we have an opportunity to work with your staff and your governing boards.
Okay, any comments on that section?
Yeah, this is one where I do disagree, I think, with the direction we're heading. Most notably, the statement is a policy intent of LAFCO to work with cities and the county in developing a comprehensive island annexation program. I've heard a lot of anxiety from constituents of mine that live in the unincorporated areas, which I believe would essentially be the islands we're talking about, where they suspect this is coming and have raised concerns about it. So I'm not convinced that we want to, at this point, sitting from our vantage point here, go on some sort of comprehensive strategy to do that at this time.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments on that? So, Damon, are you suggesting that the language be dropped out, or that the language is fine, but we're not going to move into this as part of our work program?
Well, I mean, I
Right.
can't really even support the language. Language has meaning, so it would essentially signify that we have that intent to move in that direction as part of a work plan, I would think. So I can't support that language.
Okay, and that would be all of the unincorporated island annexation policy?
You, Damon, we're kind of talking about the area off Point San Pedro in particular.
Well, Los Ranchitos as well.
Yeah, you're right, because that's kind of an odd, horsey area.
Right.
But do you concede maybe there may be some other areas where this is more applicable and less objectionable?
I don't know that.
Yeah. Just from my previous work experience, I think there are some out there that in South Marin, maybe North Marin, maybe even Novato. But I know those two you mentioned, were Los Ranchitos, which is a very odd area, pretty much surrounded by urbanization, including a shopping center just a few blocks away, and the area off Point San Pedro, where they kind of like it the way it is, each one of those. But I would hate to not do anything to this, just because of kind of a anxiety about those two sensitive areas.
But what's our goal here? Like maybe flipping it around to you, where would you see this going to accomplish something we want to do?
Well, there are a number of islands around the county we looked at. I know there are some in Mill Valley, for example, that we discussed.
I mean,
over
if just guessing, I think you're going to encounter the same issue there.
That could be. And it seems to me there's a difference between policy language that says if you're going to be looking at island annexations, this is the way you ought to go, versus here's what we're going to do some work on.
Okay, so you're differentiating between maybe the first section and the second section that I specifically read, which says here's what we're going to go out and do, is develop a comprehensive strategy.
I think that was what Keene was saying verbally, and this I'm not reading it here.
Number 3.
Number 3, yeah. Well, I'm differentiating between the general policy language and saying that we're going to take on this particular area and study it for a possible annexation. For those institutions or those cities in the county as well that are concerned about what we mean by island annexations, which is clearly in the law and something actually LAFCOs are encouraged to do. It's more creating a dialogue, and I don't know if you have to have it in your policy language, but creating a dialogue with the various communities to see whether there is any advantage to any party about on an annexation. I think it's something worth taking a look at, and it may not have to be in this document, but it's something that we sure ought to look at. In fact, the commission said that. I mean, they set up, we should be looking at island annexations at our last strategic planning retreat. And I think what is trying to be done here is, yeah, we would do that, but we would do that in a cooperative way with the various governmental agencies and public groups that are involved. That's how I read it. And that's how I would see us proceeding. I don't think it means, okay, here's, tomorrow we're going to start working on a particular island annexation in a particular area. That would come down the line when the commission makes the decision about what they would include in their work program. That's my feeling.
And it certainly would affect our priorities, the ones that are where there's a strong resistance, like Ranchitos and I guess it's Country Club. Maybe they're sort of set aside till maybe times change or politics change or something. But where I live in Nevada, we've got 2 or 3 islands. I think one, Belmer and Keys, which would fight to the death. They made sure they were out of the sphere of influence in Nevada. But Loma Verde in South Nevada, where the city kind of surrounds them, it's the city and an open space. Maybe it's, I don't know, 500 or 600 homes. And I talk to people there from time to time, and their only worry was that it changed my tax rate. Because the sort of identity they had back in the 50s and maybe the 60s is long since gone. The area's changed. And there's no, at least my sense of it, because I live there, as a matter of fact, that there's not any great anxiety about annexation. So that might be one that, is less, it has not the same sensitivity to have a look at it.
I mean, I guess if you're looking at the four new proposed paragraphs, the main concern is with number 3.
What if we just left it as the policy intent of LAFCO to work with cities and county of Marin in developing any island annexation policy or something like that?
I mean, that's a more affirmative. 1, 2, and 2 kind of deal with actual situations that are going to arise. 3 is, the way I'm reading it, is an intent to go out and actively pursue a strategy of annexation.
My emphasis would be on what LAFCO does. It should do in consultation with the cities and the county. There's the way we want to do this in a cooperative basis. So it's more of a directive to work cooperatively with almost anything we do with the city and the county.
Right, but again, the expectation is that we would embark on this. Yeah. So can I then go back to my constituents with a straight face and say, no, don't worry.
Well, you can say,
Don't believe what you're
I
reading.
can say that, that if Marin LAFCO is going to go ahead with an annexation of an island consideration, which is already in our work program, we'll look at whether or not they should in our area. We know that they will, if it's in an area, be work with the cities in the county. That it will be a collaborative process. Yeah, Carla.
What about this, Amy? Because I recall that when we did this at our strategic planning, that this was in place.
Microphone.
That this was in place during our strategic planning session. Would it work for you if we just put, it is the policy intent of Marin LAFCO to work with the cities and county of Marin when applicable in developing a comprehensive island annexation program. Does that maybe not be an all-around general island?
Well, it's almost, I think what you're saying is, by saying when applicable, meaning if the issue arises, right?
Right, if there,
I'd be comfortable more with language to that effect rather than saying that we are going to go out and develop a
right,
comprehensive
that's what I'm
program.
saying, that if it's when applicable, that gives the option that if there is a portion of an island that is resistant, that it gives LAFCO the flexibility to,
I mean, it is a policy
with or
intent of
without.
LAFCO that if the issue of annexation arises, Marin LAFCO will work with affected
Yeah.
cities in the county.
If Marin
But that's way
LAFCO
different than
undertakes
Yeah.
a study, instead of an annexation, a study of islands, it shall do so in coordination and cooperation with the city and the county.
so that's,
I mean, what
That
does
doesn't
what does
push it.
LAFCO intend to do, Keen?
Well, certainly, and I think Commissioner Connolly, you picked up on it. The intent is to proactively gauge interest amongst the land use authorities in accomplishing a task that the legislature wants you to pursue, which is, when appropriate, eliminate islands and the service inefficiencies they perpetuate. And I was listening to the conversation, and certainly there is a way either to strike 3 completely out, and you still have the intent of, this is
Actual
a policy
situations,
interest,
right?
or, you can, and I think Commissioner Condon was going down this path of figuring out a way to perhaps soften the language of 3 with one helpful context that I didn't bring up before, and that is the only way that an island annexation comes before you and can make use of the expedited proceedings, which I think is the concern, right? That's when you can waive protest, is if the city is the applicant, right? So LAFCO, in many ways, is reacting presumably to the city council, town council, deciding this is what we want to do. So there is I think a helpful context to that. So this is a key policy discussion, though, because if you were to leave 3 in, admittedly, Commissioner Connolly's comments are correct that it would provide kind of an emphasis to staff, not only your staff, but to the county and to the cities to see that there's a proactiveness to this comment. If you want to remove the proactiveness, I think you do have options, and perhaps that's something the policy committee can take up if that's the majority concern of the commission.
This comes back to us.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first look.
Well, this is the first review. Keep in mind, though, we do want to send this out to the public and the agencies. So you would have a decision to make if the inclusion of 3 or the removal of 3 is appropriate just for that outside review.
I wouldn't have a problem removing it.
And as a practical observation, I think no surprise to anyone, if something Keene maybe was thinking about trying to promote, if it didn't have the buy-in of the respective county supervisor or council or both, it wouldn't go anywhere. It would just be sort of no-go.
Keen, if 3 were to go out, functionally, it doesn't change how you proceed if we were to do an island annexation under the Hertzberg Act.
No, it wouldn't change the functional aspects of how we view island annexations. And as you pointed out, Chair, you have this incremental ability every year you look at your work schedule to decide if there's a specific area in mind that you want to look at. For example, in your existing work plan for 15-16, as part of a MSR, when we look at the sewer agencies out there, there is a line that says work with the city of Santa Fe on possible outreach to Country Club, because that's an area that actively comes to us for sanitary district connections, and we are consistently exercising a deferral to your dual annexation policy. And the idea there is, well, at a certain point, how many deferrals do we want to issue rather than just say, no, this time you need to go into the city of Santa Fe too. So that's an example where in a work plan you've called out a particular area that wouldn't be interrupted with the removal of number 3 here.
Okay.
And so, and maybe I'm overreaching, but perhaps the solution would be, for the purposes of the public review, remove 3 with the direction of the policy committee to still work on this language and see if we can come up with some agreement on effectuating our interest in signaling this as an interest without it being overtly proactive and perhaps unnerving to the powers of individual communities.
Well, paraphrasing what you're saying, we could remove it at this time for its public review, but work on
Not forget
language
about
that
it.
we could come back here and see if we can get agreement around the table here. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
All right. I think that is the end.
Yes, so
Of the
after that point,
sections.
Chair, you're looking at mostly technical changes, either adhering to, relatively recent changes in LAFCO law, or simply, some narrative improvements, as you mentioned, Chair, which was one of the goals here, is to kind of tell the LAFCO story to the applicant in a way that they can understand the procedures and the reasons behind the procedures. Yeah, I've gone through to the end on page 78. I don't necessarily see anything that would rise to a discussion here.
Okay, so you're looking for, with the removal of item number 3, we just discussed the approval to send this draft document out for review to cities, county, special districts.
Yeah, we'd send a note. First of all, we'll remove the section we've talked about, and then we'll post it to our website, and then we'll send electronic notice to all 65 agencies, and then probably provide a 45-day review period. So when we come back to you in August, with also perhaps some either reworked language on the topic we've been covering, or its consent that it has to go one way or the other, you would be asked to take some tentative action in August on this.
Okay. Do you need a motion on that?
Or
just the commission's?
Just the commission's
Essence.
nod of the head is sufficient. Thank you.
No, there are enough nods here. Okay. I'm going to then move to item number 10, which is the financial audit for the fiscal year ending in last June 30th, 2014.
Thank you, Chair. And we're going to go through the next remaining items relatively quickly, but this is the audit report that we had prepared by an outside consultant, R.J. and Riccardi Associates, for our 2013-14 fiscal year. And I'm very pleased to report we got a clean bill of health. There were no omissions or errors identified in our financial statements, which is certainly a good thing, and certainly credit to Candace, who is the overseer of our books. And now this is also, the second year we've gone through this audit process, which is relatively new to Marin LAFCO. And by inference, I also want to point out, when you got your management letter last year for 12-13, there was a bit of a list of things we needed to work on. Well, I'm proud to say that we've reduced that list down to now just a couple of things. In particular, we still need to complete our policy work on fraud prevention and capital asset management. That's in the works. You've already tentatively looked at some language. We just haven't formally adopted. So we've made progress. So again, this is a good report, and just a couple of takeaways. Our fund balance at the beginning of, or at the end of 13-14, which would mean the beginning of this fiscal year, was about $187,000. This too is a good thing because it shows that our fund balance has gone up by about 2/3 over the last 3 years. And it's going to give you some options when we come back to you probably in August or October and we start talking about how you may want to divvy up your fund balance in terms of establishing designations. So again, it's a clean audit, it's a good audit, and credit to Candace on this process. But we do ask that you formally receive and file it.
Okay, and this is also a hearing?
This is not, but you can certainly open this up for, it's a business hearing, not a we didn't notice it per se.
Oh, a business hearing. Scott, do you wish to say anything?
Will you file a report online?
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Conley and a second by Baker to approve the management report. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any commissioner objecting? Any commissioner abstain? The motion passes, and we will move to 11, which is the countywide water municipal service review, draft of private community water systems.
Thank you, Chair. So
In and around Dillon Beach.
even more quickly than that item, this is just being presented for information. It's a work in progress. We're trying to reconcile your responsibilities under Assembly Bill 54 that says anytime you do a municipal service review on water, hey, LAFCOs, incorporate private community water systems into that analysis. So what our intern has done is simply taken a first stab at identifying those private community water systems out there. There's 10 of them as far as we can tell. And in this report, we've kind of given you a very basic primer on the larger 5, which by our count serve about 1,200 people, mostly in the Dillon Beach area. What we're going to do is hopefully by this time in August, we'll have filled out the report with the other 5 private community water systems. And just for the definition, a private community water system is any water system that has either 15 or more permanent connections and or serves on an annual basis 25 or more residents. So that's the definition we're working on. But as I mentioned, getting cooperation from all of the private water system providers is not the easiest thing, as Commissioner Baker can attest from his county days. This is incomplete. We'll work on completing it for you at our next meeting, but this is really just information at this point. Unless maybe one of them's calling me right now. I don't know. And I usually don't respond that way, but just for the benefit of moving forward. So unless there's any initial questions, we'll come back to you in August.
Thanks for the maps. That makes it really easy to understand where things are. Not too long ago, we didn't have these visual aids.
Although some of them are better than others.
Well, yes. Okay. We'll move on then to the Cal LAFCO annual conference.
Okay, so we have 3 items in anticipation of the September 2nd through the 4th conference for Sacramento. And all of them have varying deadlines approaching, but we do want action on 2 particular items this evening. and that involves appointing agency delegates, as well as if there are any interested city or public members who want to run for Cal LAFCO board, this would be the time to speak up, and this would be the time for your brethren to recognize that through a formal nomination. Obviously, both are somewhat dependent on your attendance, and as of today, I'm only aware of one commissioner who will actually be in Sacramento for the conference, and that's Kate Sears, who actually is going to be doing a presentation with me on climate change. So you do have at least one option there, but certainly all the members are encouraged to attend. We have the money as of earlier this meeting. So, A, if there's any members who are going to attend and are interested in voting on behalf of the commission, this would be a good time to note it. And if Commissioners Condon, Blanchfield, or Phillips want to run for Cal LAFCO board, this is also the time to make that known. The last item is the Achievement Awards. Quickly, we can do this off dais. Cal LAFCO has 10 categories that they accept nominations from. I can work with the chair on filling out the nomination form, but it certainly would encourage members to email me any thoughts to that end over the next few weeks. So I need 2 delegates, and if any of the city or public members want to run, we need a nomination.
You need 2 delegates?
Up to 2 delegates. You could do 1, but then that delegate better show up to the business meeting on September 3rd in the morning. And I certainly, as a number 2, can serve as your delegate if you trust me with that power. I mean, obviously, that's part of it.
This is really dicey stuff here. And what about Kate? She's just going for the presentation, and then she's...
She has said she'll go to the full conference, although I don't know if she realizes that's 3 days. So,
I doubt it.
But if any of the 5
Sacramento
members
in
present
September
here
is
are going to go, we can make a nomination from this pool, and I can serve as the second delegate.
Well, you know, what? It is a little early to... let's see, when's our next meeting?
Well, our next meeting's August 13th. We need to submit this by the 3rd. As an alternative, okay, the commission can empower the chair perhaps to work this out off the dais, and we could go that route as well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
sure. And anybody who thinks they would want to go should get hold of you.
You do need a motion, though,
Or you.
to authorize the chair to make those nominations for delegates and any.
For the...
Yep. So just to formalize the motion that the commission's delegating you the authority to work out the 2 motions. 2 nominations, excuse me.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded, and I'm not quite sure what was, but it seems good. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner abstaining? Any commissioner opposed? Good. I remember Craig went last time and the time before, right?
He did. I did email him, and he was non-committal if he'd be available during that week. So I don't know if he'll be up to it this time.
Okay. So we met our obligations here then, or will meet our obligations?
You have satisfied the obligations
Okay.
expertly.
Legislative report.
Okay, so this is a quick update on the 5 bills that your legislative committee has tagged for particular interest to Marin LAFCO as a whole, and Cal LAFCO's report is attached to the item we've brought to you. There are about 24 bills right now that are making their way through the state capitol that have some impact on LAFCOs, either directly or indirectly. Your legislative committee has kind of narrowed that field, as I mentioned, down to 5, and that's really the subject of the agenda report before you. Of those 5, 3 of them we've already talked about in April, and so what we've done here is just provide you a quick status update as to where they are in the legislative process. And that includes Assembly Bill 448 and Assembly Bill 851, both of which you took support positions at your last meeting, and both are well on their way to pass out of both houses and get before the governor. And in short, 448 would provide a little extra funding for those cities who want to get into the business of annexing inhabited areas. And of course, we define inhabited in LAFCO land as 12 or more residents. And then 851 is a bill that Cal LAFCO has been sponsoring. That would create a section of law dealing specifically with disincorporations, i.e., if a city wants to disincorporate, or let's say the county wants to disincorporate a city, this would provide at least procedures for LAFCO to process that. Right now, there's actually no procedures. We would be kind of looking at ourselves saying, well, what do we do now? And in real life, I guess that is happening in Riverside County in a couple of instances. So again, those two bills are moving along their way. Assembly Bill 402 by Bill Dodd out of Napa and Yolo, that got changed to be a pilot program, and it's an interesting bill, but doesn't affect us anymore. But it's something that the committee thinks we should continue to watch, because it does deal with this holy grail issue of when is it appropriate for a LAFCO to authorize services beyond an agency's boundary by contract or agreement. And on that topic, so we do now have two new bills that we haven't talked about before that the committee flagged for discussion. Senate Bill 239 is an interesting one. It essentially would carve out an exception under this component of LAFCO law that we've been talking about quite a bit this evening about outside service extensions. And it would tell public agencies, you must go to LAFCO if you are involved in a agency-to-agency contract that involves fire protection services, if the end result would be either a reduction or addition of 25% or more of a service area, or 25% or more of an employee base. It's an interesting bill. It's a bill that was sponsored by the California Professional Firefighters. There's a lot to like about the bill, but there's also some concerns, i.e. it's, arguably it's, yes, sir.
Can you continue with this for just a minute? I'm going to
I can go, yes, absolutely. But because it's association with California professional firefighters, the perception is this is a labor issue, and they're trying to use LAFCO as a mediator between an aggrieved city or county in a special district. And so for that reason, the recommendation is to watch, but watch carefully, because it does impact your responsibilities. And you could find yourself, if it gets signed through or makes its way through its governor, in an interesting position.
Do you know any more about how this got started?
I don't. All I know is that the firefighters went to Robert Hertzberg and said, we have an idea. And it's passed through the Senate on party lines. It probably will pass through the Assembly on party lines. And unless the governor decides that he wants to veto it, I think it's going to be a law. Again, part of me sees, and part of the committee sees, the value in it, because it does raise the LAFCO Q rating. It makes fire agencies come to us if they want to make a substantive change in the way fire service is provided outside their boundaries. And in and of itself, that's a good thing, right? You're the check of the legislature. But it also comes with this association that maybe you're going to be stuck in a mediation fight. So the recommendation is to watch. The more provocative, and they're both provocative, but the more provocative bill is this Trailer Bill 825. And this kind of came out of left field over the last few weeks. It's part of what the governor is referring to as the drought emergency response. And as part of the budget, this bill would empower the state through its agent, the state water board, to be able to mandate consolidations of water systems, public and private. Again, TB 825 would be able to, would authorize the state to mandate consolidations of water systems based on some criteria that they're still working out. And again, this bill is being processed outside of the normal legislative route, so there's not a whole lot of dialogue occurring. So when you look at the actual bill language that we attach for you, it's only a couple of paragraphs. It does say that the state board will consult with the local LAFCO before going forward with a consolidation, but it doesn't necessarily say if LAFCO says this is a horrible idea, don't do it. It doesn't say the state board will stop what its plan is. Now, the concern amongst others, and the counties have their concern, the cities have their concern, special districts have their concern. The concern for LAFCOs is the bill as written suggests that the board's going to require a consolidation, and then LAFCO will complete the consolidation. Well, there's a lot of ambiguity about how LAFCO would go about facilitating a state-mandated consolidation. For example, who's going to cover our cost in processing that? And then how do we get over protest proceedings? Just because the state board would be able to say agency X and agency Y, you guys are getting together because one of you has a supply problem or a water quality problem, it doesn't necessarily alleviate the protest proceedings that are in LAFCO law. What is assumed is that this bill will pass and that next year there's going to be cleanup language. And it is believed that the cleanup language through the governor's office is going to be perhaps kind of a version of the Huffman bill, where it will allow LAFCOs to expedite and waive protest proceedings if the reorganization is drawn from this mandated consolidation. Now, that's speculative, but that's really the only kind of clear line of sight of where they could go with this. So every the Cal LAFCO is encouraging all its members to not only oppose this bill, but also to do some letter writing. The committee believes that certainly an opposed position is appropriate if for no other reason. This is a substantive policy issue, and why it's being attached to a budget trailer item is problematic. It doesn't provide for a whole lot of discussion, and it certainly deletes local agencies' discretion in being able to have input on this process. So for that reason alone, we're recommending oppose.
Commissioner Condon.
I have a question on this, Keen. The governor is proposing this, and say if it passes, but it does require official consolidation. Can LAFCO refuse?
The cleanup language would have to address that, but I assume if they're going to go down this path, they're going to tell LAFCO, your hands are tied. You're going to process this. The question is, are they going to at least acknowledge that there's protest proceedings, for one, that we would have to deal with? And then second, what if the state board decides to consolidate a CSD, a community service district that provides a whole range of services, with just a county water district that provides only water? It's unclear on how LAFCO would deal with those remaining services. So in the policy committee, we talked about and I'm using this purely as an example. So if the state said, Stinson Beach County Water District, you are going to take over Balena's Public Utility District. Well, under that scenario, you have multiple questions that would remain. Let's just say the consolidation gets approved and fast-tracked. Well, Balena's provides park services. Stinson Beach does not. Balena's has a moratorium. Stinson Beach does not. How one would reconcile those on the local level would probably be a big mess. And so, as you can see in Attachment 7, there's not a whole lot of language to this bill. I'm guessing that when you do get an update on this, it will be at the last minute, and as I understand it, they're likely to take action on this, on the budget itself, in the next 2 weeks. And there's not going to be a whole lot of opportunity to have dialogue on this. I think our best play is to start thinking about the cleanup language.
Do you think that this is foreshadowing? Every so often you hear that it's being proposed that there be links to all the different water systems throughout the state, so that if somebody's short of water, say in Contra Costa, for example, that they can take MMWD water and siphon it over there, and that all of a sudden we have this whole network throughout the state of pipelines that are connected, and that we have no local control over our water supplies.
Well, certainly, and I didn't include it, but so OPR, Office of Planning Research, is the governor's agent in getting this bill going. They have made it very clear that supply is a driving factor, and they want to be able to enhance local agencies' collective supply. So yeah, there is this interest in creating connectivity. They're also interested in abating water quality issues. And so OPR, although they have not made the list public, has said there are about 1,000 water systems in California that they believe would qualify for the mandated consolidation just based on water quality shortcomings. And there are 400 water systems that would qualify for the mandated consolidation just based on a supply, what the state board believes is a supply deficit. But those are internal lists, so no one really knows, like in Marin, if any agency is on that list. And you can see our very last attachment is a joint letter that the counties, the cities, Cal LAFCO, and just about all of the main entities co-sign, although I think we're missing one last page to it, but essentially oppose the bill. So again, our recommendation is you oppose TB 825, you authorize staff to write some letters, and then we'll keep giving you updates. But I think this is an interesting, somewhat game changer going forward.
Yeah.
Did you say you felt the bill was going to pass regardless?
Well, by way of Cal LAFCO and the lack of, I guess, responsiveness by OPR to the county, the cities, and all of the association's feedback. I mean, all these entities have said don't go there, and it's still going down the path.
It's still there. Yeah. Okay. Well, it would seem to me that hopefully Cal LAFCO is keeping the door open to be involved with what happens after this if it does go through.
Yeah.
I mean, there are those who said when Jared Hussman's bill, well, Cal LAFCO opposed Jared Hussman's bill, but there are those that said, well, LAFCO needs to perform then, or you're going to be seeing more of these. And that's one of the things that was a concern to folks. So, I think that Cal LAFCO can't be just standing out there saying, stop, don't do this. They've got to engage. So, anyway, you're looking for a motion to
oppose Senate Bill 825. Yes, so a motion to oppose 825 and authorize staff to work with the chair in writing a letter to that end.
Okay. Does anybody else want to look at, would like to look at that draft letter before it goes out?
Sure, I'd like to see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'd like to encourage, if I may, my fellow commissioners, to whatever body that you're working with, to make sure that people are aware of this, because this is just, I think it would be a travesty. I mean, it's going to be a tremendous loss of local control.
Okay, well, we have a motion, and do we have a motion? We need a motion. You have the motion stated.
Second.
So moved, or did somebody?
Second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstained? Motion passes. Keen.
Thank you.
Thanks for getting on this. I know it came out at the very last minute. Okay, last item, one of the last items, election of chair and vice chair.
So Just quickly, by way of policies, we need a chair and vice chair, and the term would commence immediately and go for 1 year. And someone does need to make some nominations here.
I would renominate our very capable current chair.
Second.
Motion and second to nominate the current chair as chair for the, for the next year. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any commissioner opposed? Any commissioner abstaining? Thank you. And then for vice chair, I would like to nominate Commissioner Condon.
I'll second that.
A motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any commissioner abstaining? Any commissioner opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you. Keen, do you have a report?
Just that last week, Candace Buzard here made it 13 years at Marin LAFCO, which I believe is the longest tenured of any employee in our history.
Great.
She also added, the last year or two have been the worst, the hardest.
I have heard that. Although we didn't need to get that on the record, but I appreciate it.
I'm making notes right now.
That's it. Thank you so much.
Please keep at it, Candace.
Thank you.
Any commissioner announcements or request or report?
Looks like the Warriors won 103 to 82.
Wow.
That is a great report. Great. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
And a motion and a second, and we're adjourned.